My name is Fire Captain Kobe Johns, and I'm from Fresno City Fire, and I'm one of the 4,500 people here that are here to help your communities deal with this fire that's been growing in your backyard for a few days. So thank you for coming. A few ground rules for this morning. If you could please silence your cell phones. We're trying to give you the most accurate and timely information that we have, and that is the purpose of this meeting. We are going to get to your questions, so if you can hold on to your questions until the end of the meeting, we will have an opportunity for you to ask us questions. And it is my pledge to you that we will stick around, even though we may not get to them in a large group format. We will answer your questions at least one-on-one before you leave here today. So just be patient with us, and like I said, we'll do the best we can. As you know, this fire's been growing, and now you're getting to see it. You're affecting it. You walk through ashes to get here. So you're very well aware of what's happening. I want you to know we have the very best firefighters in the world working on this fire. And even though my patch says Fresno Fire for the last week, and until this thing's over, we're your fire department. And so along with the best people on the planet here doing this, one of those people is your very own Fire Chief, Eric Peterson.
Well, good evening, everybody, and welcome. We're glad you're here. Before we begin, I want to start by acknowledging our elected officials and some of our VIPs that are here with us tonight. We have Congressman Salud Carbajal has joined us. Senator Hannah Beth Jackson. Assemblyperson Monique Limon. Supervisor Janet Wolf. Supervisor Doss Williams. Our county CEO, Mona Miyasato, is here with us. The Mayor of City of Santa Barbara, Helene Schneider. Council Member Greg Hart. Council Member-elect Eric Friedman. Council Member-elect Kristen Snedden. Louis Reyes Martin, Goleta School District. Kate Parker, Santa Barbara School Board Trustee. Susan Salcido, County Superintendent of Schools. And Fran Wagenek, Assistant Superintendent of Schools. And finally, our own Pancho Smith, District Ranger of the Los Padres National Forest. We're really glad he's here. So just a quick situation report. We are now, as you may have heard, at 173,000 acres. We are at 15% containment. And before I pass it to our city fire chief, Pat McElroy, one of the other best people on the planet, firefighters on the planet, I want to acknowledge the 4,435 men and women who are out there right now putting themselves at risk to put this fire out. We have between my fire department, I have 200 firefighters, give or take. I think Chief McElroy has about 100. Ventura County has, I think, somewhere around 400. That would be nowhere near enough to put a dent in this massive problem that we have behind us right now. What you are seeing is the mutual aid system that exists in this country is the best in the world. We have people here from Portland, Oregon. I've seen people from Las Vegas, Nevada. We have people from Utah, and they've come from a long, long way to help us deal with this massive problem that we have right now, and we're very, very appreciative of their presence. I want to thank you all for being here. We have the best people that we have on this fire to answer all of your questions. It's our strong desire to have you walk out of here knowing exactly what's going on, knowing exactly what the situation is now, and what we can anticipate in the future and what we're doing about it. I'd now like to introduce Fire Chief Pat McElroy from City of Santa Barbara.
Good evening. I'd be remiss if I didn't introduce another VIP here today who's City Administrator for City of Santa Barbara, Paul Casey. Along with Eric, I really want to thank the federal and state people that are here today. And I could add a few more states that I've seen too: Montana, Colorado, Arizona, New Mexico. There's people from all over the country here this week. And like Eric said, we really value what they're giving this community. But the other thing is that we're partners with you as well. This is an extremely fire-wise community, and I've talked about this to people on this fire. People live in Santa Barbara have experienced this type of activity if you've lived here for any time at all, especially in the last decade. So there's a trust, I think, between us and the community that if we ask you to do something, you're going to calmly do it. And we know the inconvenience that putting you into either advisory or mandatory evacuation causes problems in your life. But we wouldn't do it if we didn't think it was in your best interest. The mixing civilian traffic with fire traffic under these type of conditions is inherently dangerous. So as a fire chief and representing everybody else here, I want to thank you for your partnership with us during this event. There's a lot of people up here going to talk about the fire. And you're going to get a lot of your questions answered. One of the things that I've noticed, and we have a diagram out in the lobby, and there's a handout too, and it's the evacuation zones that the city and county have been working on for about the past 10 years. And so if you have a problem, sometimes we see at these public meetings, people have questions about, well, what does that mean when you tell me what my evacuation zone is? If you go out to, when you're leaving today, or if you want to stop me or anybody out there by the map, if you're uncertain about where you are in the evacuation zones, we want to point that out to you. And there's a handout you can take. It's also available at santabarbaraca.gov. And we pre-segmented the community in an orderly fashion on how a evacuation will proceed depending on how the emergency is. So your street is on one of these maps. And so if you want to, if you have any questions about where you are in terms of the evacuations, some which will be, I'm sure, announced tonight, come out to the left side of the lobby when you leave, and we'll help you find out where you are in terms of the evacuation. And thank you very much again. We work for you, and we're partnering with you this week. Thank you.
Hello, I'm Chris Childers with the Santa Barbara County Fire Department, Battalion Chief. And on this fire, I'm playing with the operations personnel, trying to figure out how we're going to get a line around this. So we're going to show the map of Santa Barbara County here momentarily, and I'll talk you through where the fire is right now and the efforts we're trying to put in to take care of it. And while I'm doing that, just so you know, the fire has last night moved into Santa Barbara County above the town of Carpinteria, Summerlin area. And so we're working hand in hand right now with Ray Navarro, Fire Chief of Summerlin, and Chip Hicks from Montecito Fire Department. And all of their resources are at our service with hundreds of other firefighters out there trying to minimize the impact in Santa Barbara County. Thanks, guys. Yeah, the ops map. Okay. So you see last night's map, 173,000 acres. Eric, I apologize, but it's over 200,000 now. If I can show you this fire, can you see the mouse? All right, let's try this. Can you see the red mark? Okay, so this fire in the Matilaha drainage, came over the ridge last night and is over into this area right now. The fire extends up to Toro Peak from Santa Monica Canyon, do you know these places? To Toro Peak, Toro Saddle, and then it's over into the Juncal area in the San Ynez drainage. So a serious growth last night and today, and you saw there was a large column. So now to catch this, we've obviously just exposed a whole lot more houses in this area, and I believe the sheriff's going to talk about the evacuation, but we have evacuated all the way through about here into the middle of Montecito under mandatory evacuation, and then we have a recommended evacuation that's going to go all the way over almost to 154 tonight. Can you see it right now? Okay. All right, so I'll just tell you, that evacuation area is going to go through up to Mission Canyon. It's going to be a recommending mandatory evacuation, and recommended evacuation, be ready to move from Mission Canyon all the way over to Highway 154. North of 192, yes, I'm sorry, not all the way down into the city, north of 192. Okay, so that's a big area. The fire moved about 6 miles last night and today. If it did that again, it would be threatening 154. We're hoping to stop it before then, and what we're going to be using as far as strategy and tactics, just to give you an idea, we have some plans. Let's see if I can do it again. Now, can you see this now? So with the fire here, we are currently trying to put some lines on it where it's slowed down a little bit here to catch it up to Camino Cielo. If that doesn't work, we move over to the Mission Canyon area, and if nothing else happens, we're going to keep point protecting behind the houses, taking care of the homes with a bunch of engines and crews. And if the fire keeps moving on us, eventually we will tie it into the Jesucita fire from 2009, and that'll get us up to the Camino Cielo. Behind the Jesucita fire, we're trying to put in some of the old fuel breaks that go down into the San Ynez River. We'll be tying into the White fire and the Ray fire that we had 2 years ago in the backcountry. And the Ray fire, of course, is then bordered by the 10-year-old fuel bed of the Zaca fire that burned a big chunk of the backcountry. So you've heard about fuels and decadent fuels that get older. Chaparral fuels burn every so often naturally. Well, these are younger fuel beds that we can get the fire into, and we'll have a much better chance of stopping it. So we're going to rely on those fuel beds and catch this fire in there if we can't catch it before that. But we are actively, aggressively trying to fight it sooner. Questions now or later? Later? Okay. Thanks, guys.
Good afternoon. My name is Brendan Ripley, and I am a fire behavior analyst, or one fire behavior analyst for this incident. You may be asking yourself, what is a fire behavior analyst? And I work with an incident meteorologist that's actually assigned here to the incident to provide input for weather. What I do then is I marry that with the topographical features that are out there and the vegetation or the fuel that Chief Childers just talked about. So what I'm going to do is give you a little bit of an insight into my world, Fire Behavior 101, so that maybe you can understand some of the challenges to an incident. History will tell me one thing, how fires have burned. It will also tell me the age class, how much dead component there is in that fuel. When you get beyond 25 years of vegetation and fuel beds, as we have here in California, the dead component in that fuel actually outweighs the live component. The live component is where that moisture sits inside the vegetation and sometimes acts as a heat sink so that it provides a mitigating factor to how the vegetation burns. Right now, we calculate, we monitor the live fuel moistures out there. The critical threshold for live fuel moisture is 60%, and we're currently at 56% and dropping. It has been over 200 days since we've received rain which is that source of providing moisture for that vegetation. And it's just extremely, extremely dry out there. One of the other fancy terms we use is called ERC, or energy release component. And what that is we look at the moisture in both the live and the dead fuels out there. When this fire started, it was at 62%. It has risen to 114%, which is a record high in these fuels that are out here. More importantly, though, when you look back at fire history, there's 20 of the largest fires that have ever occurred in California. 4 of them, until this fire, occurred in the fuel beds around us. The Zaca, the Day Fire, I'm sure terms, if you've lived here for a while, you know what the fire history is associated with that. Yesterday, the Thomas Fire was at number 15. Today, after just an update on the acreage, it moved to number 5. It is right below the 1932 Matilaha fire that burned 220,000 acres. And with what we're looking at ahead of us, it will surpass that as it moved toward possibly overtaking number 1. So looking at some of the other challenges that we have are the topographical features. The Santa Barbara coastline provides a unique contrast to other areas because of its interaction with the Pacific Ocean and the east-west range of the Santa Ynez. Sundowner winds, I'm sure you're aware of, because it has brought many destructive fires to this area. One of the things that we're looking at and tracking is we actually have 2 fire weather regimes that have promoted the fire growth here. One that has manifested itself over the last 2 days. The Santa Ana winds, which normally don't reach your coastline here, but because of the facets and the support, it has been a strong Santa Ana wind event. It has pushed it, and when I talk about northeast wind, it's where the wind originates to. And so it's pushed it to the southwest, from Ventura County into Santa Barbara County. And that progression will continue. We are currently under red flag warning. It was supposed to be originally in only last Thursday. Now we're hoping that it ends this next Thursday. Today is day 7 of red flag fire, critical fire weather conditions, and they extended it again to tomorrow. So those current weather patterns that are moving this fire in this direction are still staying in place. And it isn't until we remove that wind and that we won't have, or that progression as it moves this direction won't be mitigated. So I want to lean a little bit towards the specifics as far as topography, and I'm talking about the fire environment, which is that vegetation, topography, and weather. The other concept of it is working in this fuel bed. It is such a complex terrain, very steep terrain, very hard to access, and then that interaction with the Pacific Ocean, it brings different weather challenges. The other weather phenomenon that we're dealing with that we don't normally have to deal with this is the giant head of smoke that you see that caps out with white clouds on the top of it is called a plume, a smoke plume. And that is basically indicative of a fire that's generating its own weather. As that column rises, it pulls in air from the base of the fire, and it builds a tremendous amount of energy as it sits there. And then as it consumes the fuels below it that build that column, it collapses, and it can turn wind directions 180 degrees. Very, very dangerous for the firefighters that are at the base or in and around that. And that's something that has just manifested itself over the last 2 days. It's generated by some of the heat. Today, Paso Robles, I think, tied the record for heat, which is not helping us out at all. Our continued low relative humidity in the single digit and teens with no overnight recovery is another facet of the weather, which is that third component. Weather is the driving force behind fire behavior. And when you look at the weather phenomenon that has basically driven this fire, the winds on the first night drove the fire 15 miles and it impacted the city of Ventura. When we fought the Day Fire and the Zaca Fire, we had weeks to prepare and set up defensible space and control lines. With this, we are only into the first week, and it has almost surpassed it in acreage. So the challenges that we have before us continue to be there because of the weather patterns that we're having to face. Rapid rates of spread, spotting distances up to a mile. You can just imagine the frustration to be a firefighter and putting out the edge of the fire here, and a mile behind you, you have another start. It is very dangerous, it's very frustrating, but it's the reality of the environment that we're having to work in. And lastly, I just want to say that the fire service and the collective efforts that are working to provide mitigation for this fire are all in place. We just need to have a change in the weather to help support those operations so that we can put this fire out. Thank you.
Good afternoon. My name is Jay Kurth. I'm one of the Unified Incident Commanders to help lead and organize this situation that we're doing our best to deal with on your behalf. First and foremost, I'd like to say thank you to Chief Peterson for assigning Martin Johnson, one of his division chiefs, as one of our Unified Incident Commanders. So we have federal, state, and local leadership here on this incident doing the best that we can for what you have coming your direction. We've done our best to paint the picture of where the fire presently is. We've done the best to explain what the weather and the fuels and the topography do for you in terms of what you can expect the fire to do. And I hope you realize what a changing and drastic environment that we're facing. Those challenges are tremendously difficult to overcome on a good day, and we haven't had a good day yet. The fire did, when I left the incident command post, had looked like it was estimated to have moved another approximately 50,000 acres today. So the reason I bring that up is that it's probably going to put us at more like 225,000 or a little bit more than that. So we've moved up probably one slot on the top 5 list or whatever. I don't know, sometimes that's exciting, and in this instance, I don't think it's good at all. But I feel like I'm staring right into that thing. The good thing is that we are well organized. We've got the fire divided into 2 zones. So we've got the Santa Barbara zone and the Ventura zone. We have an operations section chief that is overseeing the full operation, but we have a deputy operations section chief in each one of those zones that's helping make sure that we've got the right resources in the right places to do what we can when the fire does come in and cause those immediate threats to life and property. Along those lines, we have placed additional orders for more fire trucks, Type 1 and Type 3 fire trucks, which is the really big ones, and then the third largest fire trucks that are approximately 500 to 750 gallon trucks. We've ordered them in terms of strike teams, which are 5 trucks to a strike team. So we've ordered approximately 100 more trucks as this fire has come further up the coastline and things up behind your communities. We're ordering more stuff in because not only do we have to deal with this ongoing and growing threat to you and your communities, but we also still have resources that we have to keep engaged down in Ventura County and things. So the stretch and the commitment is from around the country is tremendous. Chief Peters acknowledged what a mobilization process we have and how good it is. We're really putting it to the test this time of year. So we're really blessed to have all of the Wildland Fire Service and local fire services coming together to do what we can here. The other thing that I think is very, very unique about this incident is that you have 2 Type 1 incident management teams coming together from the state and the federal incident command teams that are married up because of the complexity, how fast this incident's been moving, and the challenges to keep this organized and moving forward and doing our best to support and take care of your needs. So that's about the excitement that I have for you. Oh, one more thing. With that 50,000 acre run that's occurred, you may or are likely to see a drop in containment today, because we've got far more perimeter that's made progress than we've made progress on containment. So when you see that number come down, it's a matter of growth, not a matter of us not making progress. So the fire just outpaced us today. So that's what I have. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Dr. Charity Dean. I'm the Public Health Officer for Santa Barbara County, and I'm going to reinforce some important messages about health. First, I want to mention that certain groups are more sensitive to the particulate matter from smoke. Those are people that have underlying lung conditions like asthma or emphysema, and that have underlying heart conditions. It also includes the elderly and children. And we've put out some messaging around children's health because it's important, particularly for families that have small children, to recognize that a child that's half your size breathing in the same amount of particulate matter will very likely be more affected than an adult breathing in the same amount. So please be aware of the children under your care, that they may be experiencing symptoms even if the adults in the house are not. The air quality has been unhealthy to very unhealthy to hazardous for over 3 days now. And what that means is that the particulate matter, the invisible particles in the air, are more prevalent in Santa Barbara and Carpinteria and Goleta, and now moving north. So these are invisible particles, and that means that you can see the ash falling. Those are the big pieces, but what you can't see are the small particles that when we breathe in can get deep down into our lungs. They can make it difficult for oxygen exchange, for just normal breathing, and so people need to be aware of that, and there's some precautions that you can take. The first one is if you're able to leave town, that would be a prudent move, especially for people who have underlying health conditions. It would be reasonable to relocate if you're able. If you're not able to relocate, I would suggest to give your lungs a break and get out of town maybe for 4 to 6 hours during the day if you're able to. Our lungs are able to help our body clear some of this foreign material, and we can help them do that by giving them a break. Getting to clean air, even for a few hours a day, is going to help significantly. If you are here in town, it's best to stay indoors. And if you have to go outside, I highly recommend wearing an N95 mask when you're walking outside, when you're outdoors. And we are not suggesting that people start cleaning up the ash right now. The ash is still falling, so when you walk outside and you see the ash is still falling, that means that we're expecting more. And if you need to clean up some of the ash, the best way to do it is to use a wet cloth so that you don't stir up those particles into the air. Please avoid anything like leaf blowers that could aerosolize those particles. If you absolutely must clean something up, please use a wet rag to do that. I also want to talk a little bit about the N95 mask. It's really important to get the right seal. I've seen some photos on social media where there's some gaps in the mask, and I want to explain that when you put on the mask, you'll need to press it down around your nose and make sure that you have an airtight seal all around your face. These masks can be reused. The time to stop using the mask and get a new one is if it's too soiled to continue using from body fluids or sweat or mucus, whatever, or if it's bent out of shape that you no longer get that airtight seal. For children, many children are able to wear the size small N95 mask, and various sizes are being distributed at our distribution points across the county. So when you fit the mask to a child, again, make sure you have a seal pressed down on the nose and look to see that there's an airtight seal around the face. And if you get a nice line across your face right here, you're doing it right. We will have more mask distribution locations tomorrow, and we'll release that information as soon as it's finalized. And I will stay here for questions afterwards. Thank you.
Hi, my name's Jennifer Adame. I'm Community Outreach Coordinator for Animal Services. And we just want to make sure that everyone knows what to do with their animals, where they can take them if they are in an evacuation zone. We have a dedicated hotline that's manned. That number has been distributed. It's 681-4332. You can call that hotline. If it's not being manned for some reason, sometimes when it slows down a little bit, we will turn it over to a voicemail, but it will give you instructions on how to call dispatch, and they will get in touch with us. Earl Warren Showgrounds are still accepting large animals, and Santa Barbara Humane Society is still accepting small animals. We have a lot of contingency plans in place. If those areas fill up, we will still be able to accept animals in different locations, and that's when it's important to call the hotline so that we can give you instructions on what to do. If you need assistance with evacuating your animals, we can provide that as well, so you need to call the hotline for that too. We are only accepting animals at this time for people who are in mandatory evacuation zones because we just need to keep space for everyone. So that is a big question we've been getting. The other question is we just want to make sure everyone has plans in place for their animals. Please don't leave them behind. Have a plan for them and be ready to go. Thank you.
Hello, I'm Tom Favor. I'm with the Santa Barbara County Public Works Department with the Flood Control District and the Water Agency. I was asked to give an update on watershed impacts associated with this fire. As we know, with past fires, most recently the Whittier fire, these fires can have impacts to our water supply and also to our flooding issues in the winter. And right now it's at December 10th, which is the latest that I've ever had to deal with a fire in 31 years working for the county. So I wanted to let everybody know we are working right now while this fire is burning to look at the watershed issues, not only for our reservoirs, Juncal, Gibraltar, but also for the flood control issue on the front side. We do have many debris basins on the front side from prior fires, the Romero, Coyote, other fires that we will be putting in shape prior to the winter. That'll be quite a task because it's December 10th, but we'll be prepared. I wanted to mention one last thing that's extremely important. If you are considering getting flood insurance, if you live downstream of the fire area, there is a 30-day grace period. You cannot go out and purchase flood insurance and expect it to be valid for the first rainfall. If you were to buy it today, it would be eligible January 10th. So the timing of that's really important. I would ask you to watch the Public Works website for more information on all these issues as we move forward. Thank you.
Good evening. Thank you all for being here. I'm Cindy Ponce. I'm a captain with the California Highway Patrol assigned to the Santa Barbara area here. The CHP currently has approximately 23 fixed post closures, road closures, spanning from the 192 and the 150 all the way out to the 154. So I ask that you all be very careful when you're driving. And if you happen to approach a closure where one of our officers is stationed, that you please listen to the officer's instructions. I know it's frustrating. You want to get to your house. Unfortunately, if there's a mandatory evacuation, we can't let you in. So please cooperate with the officers at those posts. We are pleased to be working with all of our partners here to alleviate this situation as soon as possible and get you back in your homes safely. And we really want to thank the public for all of your support. So thank you.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Sheriff Bill Brown, and I'm here to talk to you a little bit about evacuations. Starting at approximately 1:30 a.m. this morning, deputies from the Santa Barbara County Sheriff's Office, the Ventura County Sheriff's Office, and search and rescue teams from both of our agencies began assembling and spent much of the evening and today going door to door, making sure that everyone in the mandatory evacuation areas had been notified that they must leave. These teams did a superb job today making sure that everybody got assistance and got out of the area safely. And I also want to thank the people of Santa Barbara County for their cooperation in this endeavor. And as indicated, it's very frustrating to be told that you need to leave your home and go somewhere else. Throughout the day today, the fire has moved in a westerly direction, as you've heard, and new areas or zones have been placed under mandatory evacuation and under evacuation warning orders. The Sheriff's Office, the county, and the Incident Command take evacuation orders very, very seriously. An evacuation order means that you need to leave your residence or your business immediately. More than 5,000 Santa Barbara County residents are now under mandatory evacuation orders. As of about 20 minutes ago, the current mandatory evacuation area has been expanded, as you heard earlier, to now include everything east of Mission Canyon to the county line, the South County line, and everything that is north of Highway 192, that's East Valley Road. So again, that's Mission Canyon, everything east of that, to the South County line that is north of Highway 192. No one should remain in or try to enter that area. More than 30,000 people are now under evacuation warnings or reside in evacuation warning areas. These areas now include everything west of Mission Canyon out to Highway 154 and all areas south of Highway 192 east of Mission Canyon to the South County line. All of those are in evacuation warning areas. If you have any doubt as to whether or not you are in an mandatory evacuation zone or an evacuation warning area, you can go to an interactive evacuation map that is on the Santa Barbara County website. That website is countyofsb.org. And if you go to that website, prominently displayed at the center of the top of the page is a Thomas Fire information link. If you click that link, it will take you to a page of information that includes the interactive map. And if you click on the map, it will open. There's a magnifying glass that shows in the upper left portion where you can type your address into that application, and it will tell you whether or not you are in an evacuation zone or an evacuation warning area. Again, an evacuation warning means that you need to be prepared to leave your residence at a moment's notice. But I would advise you that whether you are in an evacuation warning area or not, if you live in the South Coast area of Santa Barbara County right now, in Santa Barbara, in Goleta, or in any of the unincorporated areas or Carpinteria, right now is the time for you to begin preparing to evacuate, just in case. You need to have a plan on where you are going to go, whether that's, and where your family's going to go, whether that's to a friend's house, to a family member's home, to a hotel, or to a shelter. There is a shelter currently open at the UC Santa Barbara Recreational Center on Ocean Road, and we thank UCSB for providing that safe place for people to go. In preparing to evacuate, whether you are in that warning area or whether you're not yet in a warning area, but in preparing to evacuate, you should gather your family members, your pets, your valuable and irreplaceable documents, photographs, jewelry, and small heirlooms. Don't worry about trying to take the big screen TV or the refrigerator. You can replace those. Look for things that cannot be replaced and make sure that those are packed up, and if they're not packed up in a vehicle, they're at least ready to go and be put into a vehicle soon. Make sure to pack any prescription medications that you have and several days' worth of clothing as well. This fire has acted in an unpredictable manner. It has been very rapidly moving, and this is going to be a multi-day event. This is not going to end tonight or tomorrow. So please, please do what you need to do to prepare to evacuate and remove yourself and your family from harm's way if it becomes necessary. And I'd like to leave you with this thought. We have a lot of people working on this fire very diligently right now. They're working to bring it under control. And they are some of the finest fire service and law enforcement professionals in the world. And they are backed up by a host of support staff who are at the Incident Command Center, who are here in our county's Emergency Operations Center. And they're working very diligently to make sure that we provide you with the service and the information that you need to be protected. We have faced fires like this before in our county, and we are going to get through this one, and we're going to do that together. Thank you.